For almost 10 years, the U.S. Supreme Court has been monitoring a disagreement on the Rio Grande between New Mexico and Texas. The case comes back to an agreement between two irrigation districts, one in Texas, one in New Mexico, signed in 2008 to share water as drought gripped the region and Elephant Butte Reservoir emptied. But the state of New Mexico took issue with how much water was going to Texas and sued the federal government over the deal. Texas then fired back and sued New Mexico and Colorado. Now, that 2013 suit is still making its way through the high court. Now, recently, New Mexico announced that New Mexico, Colorado, and Texas reached an historic agreement over the Rio Grande, but the federal government hasn't signed off on that settlement. Meanwhile, farmers in southern New Mexico have been left in limbo. This week, Our Land's Laura Paskus talks with Samantha Barncastle, attorney for the Elephant Butte Irrigation District.
Sam Barncastle, thanks for talking with me about Texas v. New Mexico and Colorado today.
Sure.
So with this lawsuit, the Supreme Court lawsuit, Texas alleges that New Mexico is using too much water, in part due to groundwater pumping, which is tied to the river. Is that kind of a fair summary of the case?
Yeah, it is. Essentially, Texas's claims are that the groundwater pumping takes away from the surface supply. And so that depletes part of the Texas supply, and therefore there needs to be some sort of accounting fix for it.
Okay. And so even though this is a state disagreement, the federal government is involved, the states of Colorado, New Mexico, and Texas. The Elephant Butte Irrigation District is in a really, what seems to me, a very tough spot. Can you explain for us how farmers in the Elephant Butte Irrigation District are physically in New Mexico, but kind of considered compact Texas when it comes to water?
Yeah, so historically, the Rio Grande Compact was negotiated for the purpose of getting a handle on upstream diversions that were reducing the flows to the Rio Grande project in southern New Mexico, West Texas, and Mexico. And basically what happened was the project was here and irrigating as a single unit in both states well before the compact came in. So what happened when they divided up the water was the middle Rio Grande was considered compact New Mexico, and their delivery was at Elephant Butte to compact Texas. The special master in Texas versus New Mexico has now ruled that this particular area, geographic New Mexico, but formerly what we called compact Texas, is actually still in compact New Mexico until you get to the state line, and then compact Texas starts. So that's a very different way of looking at things, that historically nobody has viewed this area of the world in that way. It was always sort of the EBIDs in compact Texas, but geographic New Mexico. And now we're trying to figure out what exactly it means to still be in compact New Mexico, even though the delivery obligation is only specifically to Elephant Butte Reservoir. We have to figure out what that means below the reservoir.
So what has this lawsuit and the disagreement between the states meant for your irrigation district?
A lot of uncertainty, right? We don't know on any given day what any given state or federal government is going to be seeking from us or other water users. So it's just brought a lot of uncertainty.
So there was an important filing this week. What is the latest on that you can talk about?
Yeah, so that is a good qualifier. The stuff that I can talk about is somewhat limited. The filing on Monday, November 14th, was the state's notice of filing a motion and supporting documents in camera, so in confidence. Those are sealed documents that were filed with the special master regarding the state's settlement of the issues we were just discussing. So they have now put those documents in the settlement and the consent decree in front of the judge, and they'll be asking for his approval of it.
So I feel like a lot of times when people talk about this case, it's very much couched in terms of if New Mexico wins or if Texas wins. If New Mexico wins or Texas wins, what does that mean for the district? How does the district win or lose?
Well, I guess to begin, I would say nobody wins in water wars, right? The only winners are the lawyers who can bill endlessly for the hours that it takes to negotiate resolutions. And courtrooms and trials don't resolve Western water wars. They chip away at the pieces that go into resolving those issues, but they don't resolve the actual problems. When a court enters an order, we're still going to have a drought and climate change. We're still going to have short water supply and more demand than we can fulfill. We're still going to need to eat food, but we're also going to need to have drinking water in our cities. So it's one of those situations where nobody wins. But what happens out of this situation? Well, people certainly win when there's a settlement and there's not more litigation. The problem is you're going to win some and you're going to lose some all in the same fell swoop, right? So determining when and how to approach those issues and collaboratively versus litigation means deal with them is the trick. But I would say nobody wins in these situations until a collaborative approach is found.
Right. So in October, New Mexico announced, and I'm just going to read this. This is from the Attorney General's office. The states of Texas, New Mexico, and Colorado have reached a historic agreement after 9 years of litigation that, if finalized, will resolve the massive legal dispute between states over how water from the Rio Grande is divided between southern New Mexico and West Texas. Was that announcement a surprise to the irrigation district?
Well, you have to understand we were in about 11 months of negotiations at this point in this round. So there had been previous rounds of mediation and negotiations. So this past year, starting last December after trial, the initial round of trial ended, we immediately went into negotiations. And those negotiations included not only the parties, but also all of the amicus who are participating. All the amici were brought in to consult, essentially. The irrigation districts were brought in at a little different level. Our technical experts were actually part of the committee that was working on some of these technical issues that the states ultimately, moved forward with. And we can't give details about how all of that played out, but what basically we're looking at is a settlement that the states believe resolves the issues and that deal with exactly what we were discussing in the beginning of this interview, equitably apportioning the water below the reservoir according to the way the states believe it should be apportioned, now that we know New Mexico has an interest down here where we previously thought they didn't. And we're working off of court orders, but you're also working off of negotiations too. So they believe they've found resolution. We still have a lot of work to do. Even if that is the resolution that the court accepts, there's still going to be a ton of work after this. It's not over.
Right. So you touched on this already, mentioning, drought and climate change. I think it's safe to say that Elephant Butte Reservoir probably won't consistently reach the levels that it did historically. And I'm curious, your thoughts on how to adapt and what the future could look like.
Yeah, so important in that is that you're looking at a group of farmers who are not climate change deniers, right? They're planners, they're planning ahead. They're assuming that you're correct. We're not going to see the same cycles we've historically seen. Right now, we're seeing the same cycles we've historically seen within the Rio Grande project based on the data we have. It's certainly looking worse, but we have other reasons to point to for that. Population growth, growth of domestic, municipal, industrial, commercial water beyond what historically was in place in the last drought. The farmers are still relatively using the same amount of water. Crops can only take so much, right? We've always had the same amount of irrigation. So we're looking at an increase in supply. So we've got to figure out how to create water, essentially. And of course, an engineer, a hydrologist, geologist, anyone in science with a science background will tell you, you don't create water. Well, I say wrong, right? What you can do is do better at what you're already doing and do more of it. We aren't doing what we need to leverage the stormwater below the reservoirs. We capture everything above the large reservoirs, but we need more flood control, stormwater management below the reservoirs. That's making water. We need collaborative solutions where communities, whole communities, small villages, colonias, environmental interests, the irrigation district, large cities, state government, federal government, all come together to do what I'm calling reclaim the West. The days of the large storage reservoirs and the snowpack and runoff are probably behind us. At least initially, it's looking that way. So what can we do? Well, we reclaim the West like we did the first time, but we adapt and we adjust to what we are seeing, which is shorter, intense storms that dump a ton of water in isolated areas, pretty typical areas. They're all the same arroyos, they're all the same draws, right? So place infrastructure in those areas to protect habitat, to protect the river, to protect communities, and to ultimately increase irrigation supply. So we're going to have to do more with less, and everybody's going to have to come to the table to do it.
Right. Well, thank you, Sam Barncastle. I really appreciate you talking with me about the lawsuit, and I'm looking ahead to the future.
Great. Thank you for having me.